Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, Alvaro. We're at Cardano Summit 2023 and we're coming to the close of the whole conference. So I'm very grateful that we get to have a bit more of a chat with you. I know that you've got some pretty interesting blockchain initiatives that you've been working on at UNHCR, but before we go into that, there might be some people who aren't familiar with UNHCR. Maybe you could just give us a bit of a crash course. What is UNHCR? What does it stand for? And what are some of the goals of this organization?
Oh, sure, and thank you for having me, by the way. So I actually work for Switzerland for UNHCR, which is the national partner of UNHCR, which is the UN Refugee Agency. So think of it, Switzerland for UNHCR, as a kind of spin-off for Switzerland and Liechtenstein for the UNHCR. So we take care of raising awareness and mobilizing critical resources, aka fundraising. The organization, UNHCR, they are the UN agency whose mandate is to protect the rights of refugees around the world. So today we just got the numbers. Last week we have reached around 114 million people forced to flee around the world. So I've checked it. It's a bit more than the total population of Egypt, a bit less as the one as Philippines. And yes, what we have right now is really the number of refugees increasing exponentially. And yet the budget is not increasing at the same pace. And that's why you have national partners like Switzerland for UNHCR who are being created to really focus on the fundraising and the raising awareness parts.
Got it. I actually read somewhere that we have more forcibly displaced people in the world right now than ever before.
Well, since we've been tracking it, we definitely do.
Yeah.
And for the numbers themselves, I wanted to specify as well that forcibly displaced encompasses several categories. So we are the UNHCR is the UN Refugee Agency, but not all of them are refugees. So, for example, the biggest group is what we call internally displaced people, or IDPs. And for every refugee, as such, you will have around 2 internally displaced person. The only difference between them is the fact that an internally displaced person, as the name suggests, didn't cross a border. A refugee did cross the border.
Right. And IDPs, do they fall in your remit as well?
Yes, as well. We support IDPs. We work for them. But even if the agency is called UNHCR, it's one of the groups of beneficiaries of the mandate.
Yeah, right. And anyone who's forced to leave their home would be finding themselves in similar circumstances, whether they had to cross a border or not. So I can see how that's extremely important. And what's your role there? What do you do?
So as previously mentioned, I'm head of innovation for a national partner. So the way that we actually set up is quite particular, because our role is our 2 objectives are, as said, the raising awareness, but also mobilizing critical resources, so fundraising. So when you work in innovation in one of the structure, it is also to find ways how to connect and identify and explore maybe a technology or corporates that will have that is developing a solution or a service that could be useful not only in Switzerland but to the entire organization. So being Switzerland, as you can imagine, Switzerland is a big blockchain hub. So we quickly were actually approached, and we approach corporates who are based and foundations who are located in Switzerland, to see how we could actually make the most and see how we could benefit from blockchain and see how it could actually improve the way we not only fundraise and raise awareness, but also maybe if there is an application to the wider organization on the field, for example.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's starting to answer some questions for me too, because I was thinking, UNHCR seems to have a very forward-thinking approach to blockchain. I guess I know you've got this staking pool initiative on Cardano, which is very interesting. Before we dive right into that, can you just explain what is a staking pool? If someone's watching and they're not really familiar with this, and particularly on Cardano. Maybe they know about staking within the EVM ecosystem. Like, what is a staking pool on Cardano?
So no worries. First of all, I had no idea before we started collaboration, or only knowledge about blockchain was about NFTs and dropping them, and thinking that just by dropping an NFT will sell itself, and this way we could fundraise, which obviously didn't, because we were after the wave. So
you tried that too.
Yeah, that was a first attempt. So we did it a bit differently. We actually asked, because we work with refugees, we asked a cartoonist, a Syrian cartoonist refugee, who's actually right now a refugee in Geneva, to actually depict what it means to be a refugee today. So he did this series of drawings, of illustrations of what it means for him to be a refugee in Geneva, as I was saying. And it got quite a bit of attention in terms of engagement and visibility, but in terms of fundraising, it didn't reach objectives at all. So that's when we realized that actually we might not be speaking to the right audience and the right community. And that's when we actually started discussing with Cardano, whose community, I have to admit, has been incredible actually to meet and discover the community. So going back to the stakeful question, immediately when we started investigating and exploring what the opportunities and the opportunities were in this area, in this ecosystem, we immediately saw that might be an issue to work with blockchains protocols who are doing some, like for example, proof of work, which in terms of reputation, but also the fact that they use a lot of energy, might be a bit risky and a bit touchy. What we liked about Cardano when we started talking to them was the fact that they were proof of stake, so that the validation mechanism is actually totally different. They use pool to validate transaction instead of like a proof of work. And so not only it's a lot more energy efficient, but also it opens up this opportunity that we created by creating a pool for refugees. So people delegate their funds. So it's quite a different, or for a humanitarian like us, it's already different because we tend to say donate. And in this case, it wasn't about donating. We were saying delegate, which is a new word for us. So I could actually underline more the importance of education. So for everyone, like understanding a bit more how blockchain works, but also making sure that all stakeholders involved in the project understand it as well. Because in this case, it was very fundamental. It was crucial to really make sure that everyone knew that what delegating means. So people will delegate their funds, so they still own it, and they will delegate it in our stake pool, which is called WRFGS, because you can only use 5 letters, but it means with refugees. And by doing this, they were still keeping their funds. So that solved another issue, which was, can we hold crypto funds as an organization? So we didn't know yet, and it's quite touchy. So we're not holding cryptocurrency officially. We just have this stake pool, and all the rewards are donated. The generated rewards are donated to UNHCR via us, and we immediately convert them into fiat.
Right, so you're never holding any crypto.
We're never holding.
That's a very interesting benefit, right? And I loved how you talked about kind of flipping the model. You don't have donors anymore, you have delegators. Yeah.
So indeed, we're adding an offering to our fundraiser colleagues. I'm not a fundraiser myself, but my colleagues are fundraisers. So for them, again, education was key. It was about making them understand that now they don't have to only approach people by saying, hey, you can make a donation or a gift in kind. Sometimes when you have some corporates who are giving clothes and things like that. But you do have another proposal available now. You can ask them if they are big digital asset holders, for example. Now they are able to go to them and say, by the way, you can keep the funds. Maybe you didn't think about donating them, but still, in the meantime, you could delegate them for a year, 2 years, 3 years in our stake pool and still help the cause and support refugees this way. So it's a turnaround, a bit of a new offer, a new way to support refugees on the organization.
You mentioned education a bunch of times. I'm sure there's loads of other charities around the world who would love to be able to do something as innovative as this, but I'm sure they find it difficult to even just to pitch those ideas internally, let alone get everyone on board. How hard was that, and how long did it take? Because I know that you're in a communications role as well in terms of getting a lot of that information across. Like, how hard was it?
To actually being able to do this project, you mean?
Yeah, like all that education involved, I can only imagine it must have been a big effort.
Yes, no, indeed. And I think that the fact we're a national partner also helped, meaning we're not the UNHCR, we're not UNHCR per se. So that gives us a lot of room to experiment, and always of course, we're part of the UNHCR ecosystem. Huh? We're still part of that ecosystem, but we don't have the same process in terms of, for example, request for proposals, which is very important at global level. We can maybe a bit in an easier way. We can explore, test, experiment, and see what works and change it. This is obviously allowed, not only allowed, but actually permitted because of the Swiss ecosystem. So Switzerland is quite, has quickly adopted those blockchain laws.
Yeah.
So we are following Swiss rules. We're actually a Swiss foundation officially. So that allows us to actually test and experiment quite quickly. And the stake pool, as you see it right now, is a validated proof of concept that is always evolving and adapting themselves to create a value proposition that actually fits what other audiences might want to do with it, like corporates, foundations now. So,
right. So this is fascinating in terms of a sustainable model for fundraising. So you've got your delegators, and they're donating their staking rewards to UNHCR.
that's correct.
So what do you actually spend it on?
All right, very good question. So actually, when we set up the stake pool, that question came up, but we saw a great potential, something that maybe a gap that we couldn't actually address previously, which is underfunded crisis, meaning like protracted crisis, forgotten crisis, because there is a clear correlation between a crisis or situation or country being in the media and the donations that are made for those crises. So a lot of major situations are taking place around the world that are not being mediated, that people don't know about, and we always struggle, and funding those operations has always been a big challenge. So when we started working on the stake pool idea, we saw that it could actually help us address these issues, because we could have part of those rewards spent into, for example, underfunded operations and protracted crises that usually don't get any funding from the public. So we decided to do an 80-20 split, because education is such an important part again. So 80% of the rewards will be allocated into what we call unearmarked, so which allows us to spend it in countries that are underfunded and let's say protracted and forgotten crisis, and 20% are allocated in a UNHCR Innovation Fund, which is a refugee-led initiatives with the objective of promoting and educating field officer and staff on the field, also refugees, about what blockchain can do, how they can use blockchain to find solutions to their daily challenges.
Cool.
So those 20% are actually allocated in that innovation fund that is doing refugee-led projects.
That's amazing, because I can only imagine for someone like yourself who is so close to this issue, it must be so frustrating when you see that those crises that are getting the headlines, they attract all the funding, but you know that that's really only part of the problem. So that's amazing that you found a way to fund it.
Big mixed feelings.
Yeah.
In one way, you're super happy to see the solidarity going on, people really wanting to help, and people that never donated all of a sudden donating for this crisis. But on another way, you also say, let's not forget about other crises that are still happening and nobody really talks about.
So, final question. If people are watching and they really want to be able to get involved, become a delegator, how can they find more information or just go ahead and participate?
So if you're already on a Cardano blockchain, we are a stake pool, so you can find us with refugees stake pool, so WRFGS stake pool. You can find us easily, and please, we need all the support we can have. So do not hesitate to delegate. Where you can also reach out to us. So as a Swiss national partner, our website is very easy to find. Is unrefugees.ch, CH being Switzerland, and you have all the information there. And we're always open. As said, we are an ongoing experiment that's being validated as we go and adapted as we talk to different audiences. And we're never going to be a tech company. We're humanitarians, so we need people to actually come up with ideas, suggestions, and recommendations because we're in this all together. Because there's no refugee crisis. I think our High Commissioner, UNHCR High Commissioner, said one time that there are no refugee crises. There are only political crises. So it's a problem that the entire humanity is facing, not only us. So let's find also alternatives, like a stake pool, for example, to see and find solutions to how to address this.
Well, you might not be a tech company, but I can definitely see you've adopted that startup mentality in terms of test, measure, learn, try something out, iterate if you can, and eventually land on a model that works. So thank you so much for taking the time to help me understand this a little bit more, and congratulations on coming up with this. It's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.